Hi, and welcome to this quick video on what SQL is. You should have by now set up your SQL developer, created your tables, populated your tables, have all your connections and all of that. And this is really kind of a lead into chapter one. Chapter one talks a lot about the databases, but I just thought that we should understand what SQL is real quick. And what SQL is it's a structured query language, pronounced SQL, and it's used to communicate with a database. So most of the things that we do on the computer on the internet have a place to store all of this data, and all of that is stored in a database. Some databases are structured, some are unstructured. For this class, all of our databases will be structured, and it's really the standard. SQL is really the standard for the database management system, or the DBMS. And the SQL statements are used to retrieve data, to update data, manipulate that data. So I want to show you just very, very quickly some very basic SQL statements. The first one here, you go and you select the column name. Uh, The first one here is a very, so I want to show you some very simple SQL statements, and we're going to go over to SQL Developer to do this. So we're in SQL Developer. I'm in my accounts payable schema. I have my 7 tables, and I'm going to write a very, very simple SQL statement. This SQL statement has the select clause in it and the from clause in it. In this case, we're going to select everything. And instead of typing out all of our column names, we're just going to use the asterisk. We're going to select everything from our vendors table. So you'll notice I wrote the select clause on one line, the from clause on the next line, and I've indented that. And then all your SQL statements need to end in a semicolon. I understand that SQL Developer is not overly particular, but it's a good habit to get into because you're going to be using these SQL statements in applications. So remember, we have our run button, which will run just that statement, or we can run the entire script. I'm going to put several SQL statements on here, so I just want to run one at a time. So I make sure that my cursor is on the line or within the script. I'm going to run the statement, and then my results appear down below. So I have my vendor ID, vendor name. This is everything from the table. And in order to see if I have everything correct, I'm going to go down and I'm going to see how many records it returned. It returned 122. To verify that, I can come into my vendors table, go into my data, and then scroll down, and lo and behold, I have 122. So I knew my SQL statement worked. So now let me just go over a couple of other quick SQL statements. This one will go and will grab information where my vendor ID is 10. I don't want all the rest of them. I don't want all 122. I just want one. I just want one where my vendor ID equals 10. So I only want to run this statement. So I'm going to click on my run button up here. That runs it. It returns my vendor name for Robin's Mobile Lock and Key. So we did 2 different things in here. I used my column name and I put in a where clause. And in this case, my where clause is where my vendor ID equals 10. I can go and I can do a couple more. So now I have a SQL statement that's returning 2 columns, my vendor ID. You'll notice it's separated by a comma, and my vendor name from my vendors table where my vendor state equals California. So if I run this one, I'm going to come up again with my vendor ID and my vendor name, and now I have 75 of them here. Well, and they're in really no order at all. I have job track before California, and I want to go through it and I want to sort them by name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this query, copy and paste it, and then I'm going to go ahead and order it by my vendor name. So now when I run just this one, it should put everything in alphabetical order. So again, what this is doing is it's going and it's retrieving information from your table. Sometimes it will present it to the user. Sometimes you'll use this in a report. But these are some very, very basic SQL statements. Again, SQL is used to go and retrieve information from a database. In this case, we are retrieving information from one table in a DBMS. Now let's go ahead and continue with chapter 1.